Welcome to CIL 680. We're going to be talking today about creating text sets for nonfiction.
We're going to start with purpose of the assignment. We're going to talk about defining nonfiction for this very first text set. We'll discuss some sources that we can use and where to find them, and then we'll go through the tasks for the assignment.
Perfect. So let's get started. So when we're thinking about creating text sets for our classroom, the purpose really is to engage our students in reading and responding to a variety of high-interest nonfiction. Oftentimes nonfiction can be dated and, well, for lack of a better words, boring. And so when we're thinking about defining nonfiction in our classrooms, we want to consider things like informational text, genres that support historical nonfiction, science texts, literary works that have, well, factual information in them. And so there can be a variety of topics that you could cover when you're thinking about nonfiction text sets. You could think about maybe studying the planet. You could think about studying a historical moment, like a civil rights movement. You could think about studying science, weather elements, and things like that. Those are all possibilities for thinking about nonfiction text sets. One of the greatest sources we have is the Journal of Children's Literature. And the great thing about the Journal of Children's Literature is it comes out twice a year, both spring and fall. And in the Journal of Children's Literature, scholars have taken time to really think about, well, what are great books to bring into our classrooms? And so when we're looking at the Journal of Children's Literature, you can actually explore the book review column. And in the book review column, it highlights and often provides a rationale first and foremost for why those books were selected, and then is central to one particular topic. So this book review column in Journal of Children's Literature covered things about Earth's ecosystems, and the way that book review is centered is around how can we conserve, how can we make sure we're keeping care of our environment. And so the books that are part of that collection include all sorts of great children's literature, picture books that are geared towards K-8. And so when we're thinking about those sources, we can look at some of those books and maybe we want to use some of them in our own text set. And so for example, this book, All the Water in the World, is a wonderful picture book, very simple text, but an entry point into exploring nonfiction text, and maybe, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, an anchor text for creating your text set. So we'll notice that there's beautiful illustrations. The text is minimal, but it gives us an idea about why water is so important and where does it come from and things like that. So as we begin to talk through the tasks of creating this text set, the first thing that you'll do is write a rationale. And in your rationale, you want to describe who is the audience that your text set is intended for. What is the educational community that you're targeting? The book that I just showed you, All the Water in the World, is definitely geared towards a primary classroom. And so all of the text that you choose, that you talk about in your rationale and in your text set, should be linked to who is the audience. The second thing you want to think about is how is your text set organized? Think about the series of books that you choose. Just like earlier when I talked about the book review column in Journal of Children's Literature, there's a reason why those books are organized in a specific way. There's a reason why they all work together. In other words, the books that you choose in organizing your set should all talk to each other in some ways. They shouldn't just be an arbitrary collection of literature. The context of your curriculum and how these books, this text set, fits into what you would do in your classroom throughout the year. So maybe the collection of 10 is geared towards exploring a particular set of standards in your classroom or something that you're interested in working on throughout the year. The fourth thing that you'll do, you'll talk about why you chose the books you chose. Do they meet the standards in authentic ways? And do they frankly have some great illustrations and text? The books that you choose are really going to have to be engaging to your young readers. So something that maybe you loved 15 years ago might not fit into this study.
The next step is to actually create your mentor text set. So you're going to use all of the resources and the professional readings to compile 10 books for your text set. Beginning with an anchor text is actually really useful.
Right, and when you think about an anchor text is actually something that brings all 10 pieces of children's literature together. So going back to the notion of thinking about conservation in our environment, this particular book, An Environment at Risk, would be a great example of a mentor text, again for a primary elementary grade classroom. So when we look at this particular book, what I love about it as a mentor text is, granted, we're not going to read it from cover to cover, but it explores many concepts that might contribute to conserving our environment. So we have things like acid rain on one page, oil pollution on another page, and the effects of pollution. How does garbage affect us? All these things are related to conserving and protecting our environment. So an anchor text really brings all 10 pieces together. So this is probably your most important text when you're beginning to think about your text set. How does it guide all of your other choices for the other 9 books that you'll talk about?
So you will have, after you've established your anchor text, choose 9 other texts, and you're going to write a brief annotation for all 10 texts in the end. In the assignment, we've actually included a little bit of a guideline, 1 to 2 sentence summary for each text, and 3 to 5 sentences that connect the books by topic, theme, or conceptual idea. So you'll notice that we're kind of reiterating the first 4 things that we went through earlier in the video, and that is, how are we making choices, how do all of these books connect, and how are we going to establish that kind of context in our curriculum for our students.
Right, and it goes back to the rationale as well. Who is the audience that you're targeting for this particular text set? So we did bring a few other books to kind of show you. This book might be one of your extra 9 that goes on that supports your anchor text and your mentor text set. So Rachel Carson, in her book That Changed the World, talking about all the things that she did as a conservationist. We have things like Hopping Ahead of Climate Change, thinking about what do the effects of climate change have on animals and see how these particular animals survive. How does a warmer world impact animals as well? Again, the interesting thing about all of these texts that I'm showing you too is some of them are nonfiction. That means they're just factual information, but some of them are also stories that include factual information, like The Cat from Hunger Mountain, or a book like One Plastic Bag is written in narrative structure, but about a particular woman who used the plastic bags to save and recreate useful things so that the environment could be protected.
Right. So after you've created your mentor text, you're going to create 2 lesson plans following the UNLV template on a topic, theme, or conceptual idea. So again, how you're organizing all of that information. You're going to include research-based response strategies that are appropriate to the objectives of your lesson. And so again, everything is tied together. Now in the bottom of our, over here on the criteria for success, we've outlined some of the ways that you will know that you've put together a successful assignment. But before we even do that, you're going to share your ideas, share potential texts for your text sets in a discussion forum, where feedback is just as, if not more important, than your initial post. So you will share some of the ideas you have, maybe some of the concepts that you're thinking about, and if you have a fully formed idea, that's great. But if you also have maybe a couple of concepts that you're working through, or you need some help or guidance from your peers in developing a rationale, or maybe even some suggestions, the forum is the place for that.
The feedback forum comes the module prior to submitting your text set. So although we are going to be evaluating what you've written for your rationale in your assignment that you turn in your text set assignment, your peers are really going back to that idea of going to help you iterate what it is you'd like to think about for your text set, and they'll help provide that feedback. And don't forget that you're not on your own to find these literature sources. You should use the resources available in the links at the end of the syllabus. You should go to the RTDRL website. It has great book lists and logs as well. So don't try to just grab things out of the air. Use those resources.
And don't be afraid to actually go into the TDRL library as well and
Oh,
ask for
yes.
someone to assist you.
Have a great day.